Time now for the Comcast Business Edge. This is the 15th playing of the Wells Fargo Championship. The first 14 all played at Quail Hollow Golf Club in Charlotte. But as Quail prepares for the PGA Championship this summer, the Wells Fargo moves to Eagle Point. Trip without any past history to go on. Who has the edge this weekend?
Well, all eyes are going to be on Dustin Johnson, world #1, as they should be, and I think he's going to play quite well. And if we look at some of the past winners, of course, the history at Quail Hollow, as you mentioned, these guys right here, and certainly Rory McIlroy loves that golf course. Look for him at the PGA to be a factor. But here this week at the Wells Fargo, I like a guy who's been on leaderboards quite a bit, and that's Paul Casey. Paul Casey's iron game is in full flight. In fact, he's had 15 top 10s the last 2 seasons, 4 second-place finishes, courtesy of his mid-iron game. You look at his ranks in proximity from 150 to 175, he's 5th. From 175 to 200, he's 6th on the PGA Tour. You're going to have a lot of those mid-iron shots this week at Eagle Point. Some say the golf course has a similar look to Augusta National. The greens are quite big, so that iron play, he can make those greens a lot smaller. But when he does miss the greens, here's the other thing. He makes very few bogeys because the short game is so solid. He's 8th in scrambling and 6th in gaining strokes around the green. So overall, tee to green game, great. When you miss a green, you get it up and down. That's a pretty good formula of success no matter where you play. And it's hard to believe Paul Casey has not won since 2009. I think that changes this week in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Thanks, Trip. That's the Comcast Business Edge. And here is a closer look at the new host venue for the Wells Fargo Championship from the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. The rough at Eagle Point Golf Club at 2.5 inches and the greens rolling 12+ on the stip. Another name to watch for sure, Adam Scott, who has 4 top 4 finishes around the world since his last victory, which came last year at Doral. He looks to challenge and change that this week in Wilmington. Think about what he did at the Masters with the top 10. Certainly all eyes pointing that Adam Scott once again can be a contender right here on the PGA Tour. You take a look at the numbers and just the goose egg in the middle. No wins for Adam Scott. His last victory, of course, as we said, came at Doral, the now WGC Mexico Championship.
I've had my ups and downs at Quail Hollow, so I was looking forward to a bit of a break, although we'll be going back there in a few months. But, you know, I was looking forward to coming to a course that not everyone had played, and although I'm working hard to figure it out, you know, seeing some firm greens really excites me because we don't often get that. Some control's going to be needed, and looking forward to the challenge of a new venue for sure. I've had a few weeks off since the Masters, and I want to, obviously the Players is next week. That takes priority in the schedule, and this is a great week to get myself tuned up. It's kind of the approach I've taken to all the big events, is tune up in the weeks before and play, and I'm doing that here. And like I said, this is a great test to get ready for the Players, because somewhat in a similar way it's the same thing. It's the second shot golf course next week, and so this will be a good test to see where it's at.
And take a look at that tee time for Adam Scott as he will go off at 7:45, the 10th tee tomorrow with Patrick Reed and Jim Furyk. All 3 players really looking to jumpstart their season. Well, it's interesting. We heard Phil earlier in the show say he wasn't looking ahead to the Players because he really loves this golf course, even though it's new, and he wants to win it. Where Adam taking a different approach, as we just heard, this is a tune-up for next week. When you're using a tournament as a tune-up, how difficult is it to go out and win when in your mind you're thinking about peaking next week?
Well, who's to say, Ron? I still think the players in the field that are in the field this week, they know the Players is next week. It's one of the biggest events all year on tour. But they're there to win. And I think Adam Scott has a pretty good advantage this week. And there's a few reasons why. Number one, the wind's going to blow tomorrow afternoon and Friday morning. He is early late on his tee time. So he may catch a break with some of the wind. The second reason is he's won on some of the hardest golf courses on the PGA Tour. Think about in his 13 wins, TPC San Antonio, Riviera, Sawgrass, PGA National. So he plays well on hard golf courses, and all indications are right now from the Players golf course / conditions, this is a nasty test. So that's why I think he can play well this week.
It's interesting. We talked about Phil as well, who hasn't won in a while. I mean, last year he, of course, won back-to-back on the PGA Tour, but it's been a little bit of a dry spell. How much is left in the tank for Adam Scott?
Oh, I think a lot. He's got tons of game. He's a ball-striking machine. His putter, as we all know, can kind of come and go, but he's a major champion. He's still young in his years. He's got tons of years left on the PGA Tour. I wouldn't be surprised to see him win 4 or 5 more times, possibly even a major, if he can match up ball striking with putting, which is when he's at his best.
Yeah, when he won those 2 weeks in a row, the putter was magical. Hasn't been since then. Still to come here on Golf Central, Dustin Johnson has won 3 consecutive times on the PGA Tour. How close is DJ to taking his game to another level where very few have ever been? And next week, former #1 in the world Jason Day returns to defend his Players title. See what areas of his game may need improvement.